Hi, welcome back. In the wintertime, we, like most gardeners, are still gardening, at least in our heads. And we like to plan what we're going to plant in the coming season. And for a few years, I would can salsa every year. But I haven't done that for a while. But our daughter wants to can some salsa this summer. So we're going to do that. What you need to do is you need to find the recipe you're going to use. And then you need to plan accordingly how many pounds of tomatoes you need, how many pounds of peppers, onions, garlic, whatever you're going to use. Then you can kind of plan what you're going to plant based on that. So I found a recipe that I thought sounded great. And obviously it calls for tomatoes. And this particular recipe, you can use all kinds of tomatoes. So we've planned to have Roma tomatoes and a beefsteak tomato and maybe even some cherry tomatoes like Sun Gold, because that'll give us some sweetness, which I think will give it a really good flavor. So once you decide what you're going to plan, then this is how we do it. Russ draws up a plan of what our garden space looks like. Now, since we were actually in the revamping stages last summer, we didn't get to do any gardening. So this will be our first summer gardening. And usually we like to plant things early spring so we can do peas and lettuce and stuff like that. But things in our personal lives are a little up in the air right now. So we're probably just going to focus on our warm season crops. So you can see we've kind of written down this is the plan for the salsa, and we're going to plant 4 different kinds of tomatoes. We've got a Roma, a beefsteak, Sun Sugar, our little yellow cherry tomatoes that are so good. And then Cherokee Purple is an heirloom, and we grew that in our last garden 3 years ago, and it struggled a bit, but the tomatoes we got off of them were so good. So, and then we talked about what else we wanted to fill in. So this is also part of our salsa garden: onions, garlic. We always like to grow cucumbers if we can. My favorite is the Armenian. We're going to try honeydew. I mean, we've done it before. Sometimes melons are hit and miss. It just depends. But we have an extra warm, I feel like we have a microclimate in our backyard. I think melons are going to be a lot easier in this new yard. Zucchini, of course, and then corn. I mean, there's nothing that beats homegrown corn. And then I always like to plant flowers, not just for the aesthetics, but if you believe the old wives' tales, marigold and alyssum help fight pests. So if you can see that these garden boxes are divided into squares, and we do what is called the square foot garden method. And there's a book and there's a kind of a whole movement about it, and it's just changed our way of gardening. It cuts down on weeds, and it's just amazing. So there's a book that kind of tells you it breaks down the different plants and how many can be grown in 1 square foot. So like the bigger plants, like your tomatoes, you can have 1 plant per square foot. But things like spinach and radishes, you can plant a lot more, and it goes into specifics in the square foot gardening book. But anyway, so we've got our 4 different tomatoes here, and they'll be supported by the trellis here. Over here, because they're kind of half squares or kind of triangle shapes, since this is a unique shaped garden bed, we're just going to plant some alyssum right here along the bottom just to see. We don't know how it's going to work as far as light and things like that, but we're just going to try it. And then here we've got cantaloupe. The cantaloupe, you can see it touches the trellis here too. So we think that it will go well. So we've got 2 cantaloupe plants going up the trellis here. And then over here, we have a couple of marigolds in the corner. And then we have our cucumbers here. So they will also go up the trellis. So coming back here, I've got marigolds in these corners here. And then we have jalapeno pepper and bell peppers here. And those will be a little bit bushier. And then our honeydew will be here. And you can see that we don't have anything filled in here. And that's because melons, they like to spread. So we're going to give it space to spread. So in here, we've got a zucchini. Zucchini also needs space. It's not a viner like a lot of the melons and squash, but it gets pretty big. So we're going to plant that there. The rest of these are corn, and you plant 1 seed per square. And the reason why we have them so dense right here is because corn needs the wind and each other to pollinate. So they'll grow close together and the wind will kind of sway the tassels, and that's how they pollinate and develop the ears of corn. Some of these we'll just put seeds in the ground, and some will be plants. So the corn, we always have the best luck with just plopping the seeds right in the ground. The things like our tomatoes and our bell peppers and zucchini and honeydew, we'll get those as starts because we don't have as long of growing season as we would like. It just gives us a little bit of a head start. We're excited about this new garden space. Because this is a new yard and new home for us, we're just learning. And like I said earlier, I think we have a microclimate back there. It's usually a lot warmer back there than it is the ambient temperature. So it's going to be fun over the next few years to kind of see what we can grow and how we can extend our growing season because it's warmer back there. So the next step will be to set up a calendar for Russ and I to tell us when each of our plants need to go into the ground. We look at our last frost date for the season before the spring, and that gives us an idea of when to plant our plants. You can come back then and we can show you what we do with that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.